Welcome to Paris Lesbos, the most fabulous podcast in the world. And today we're dealing with a woman known as Thief of Souls. She also happens to be my favorite painter. It's Romaine Brooks.
So she's stolen your soul?
She never painted me, so she technically has not stolen my soul. She really didn't have a very good life till she was like 21.
Well, so how did she start out?
With all the heavy emotions. So she was born in Rome, May 1st, 1874. Though she was an American, but her family lived in Europe most of the time. Her parents actually divorced not long after she was born, so she pretty much never saw her father, except once at a boarding school years and years later. She didn't like him, she decided. So she was left in the care of her very mentally unstable mother. I have no idea what was wrong with this woman. Her schizophrenic brother, and a sister who doesn't really appear much in her story. They didn't get along.
Do we know, you say you don't know what was wrong with her mother, but do we know, what happened? What did she do that was so bad?
Her mother, aside from being very neglectful, would hold seances, think she could talk to deceased lovers she had scorned, including a man who threw himself into Niagara Falls. Absolutely doted on her brother, who was just Botso, because schizophrenia at the time. Really no good treatment.
So that sounds like a very chaotic home life.
Yes, there's a story where when she was a toddler, her mother took her out walking in a park, and toddlers, they can't walk very far, as I'm sure you'll realize. So she got tired really quickly, sat down, cried because she was tired, was dragged home, smacked, and put to bed.
Wow, that is so awful. Yeah, so not a happy childhood, it sounds like.
Very much not. This does not include the time where her mother left her in the care of a washerwoman in the slums of Philadelphia.
Was that nice? Did she have fun there?
It was a happier time. She could actually draw. Her mother forbade her from drawing.
Why?
I am not entirely sure. She just did not like it. Ella Waterman Goddard had ever-changing plans for her daughter. At one point, she decided that Romaine would be a nun, so she sent her to Catholic school, where Romaine tried to kill herself with sulfur matches in water.
Wow. Ooh.
And then later on, she decided that her daughter would marry a rich man, so she sent her to a Swiss boarding school.
And not, letting her choose her own path at all.
Correct.
So how did Romaine get into art?
Oh, she was always drawing. She did it in secret. And then there was a point, I think it was the school called Chestnut Hill, that she was sent to in the U.S. after the Philadelphia slums incident. Her grandfather eventually found her. They lived outside of Philly. And her grandparents and mother finally, some conversation between them, and she was sent to this boarding school in the U.S. where she sort of gained a bit of self-confidence, more individuality, more being allowed to draw, though it was not the best school. There were rumors that some of the higher-ups at the school, like principal and whatnot, would call the senior girls in and fondle them.
Yeah, that sentence was not beginning in a good way. And wow, so just the whole way through, that was just a bad childhood.
Yes.
Oh, what luck. So how does she escape this mess?
Her mother decides to let her study singing. Romaine was apparently a very good singer. So she is sent to this French couple in the French countryside for singing lessons. And this was a very mixed bag. It was not the cleanest of places. They threw their garbage and other refuse into what was essentially a cesspool in the backyard. And the couple's daughter introduced Romaine to pornography.
All right, then.
However, she did develop a crush on an English woman who was sent for singing training there. She would go on to be quite famous. Her name was Clara Butt.
I don't think I've heard of her.
I hadn't either. There's a lot of people I end up hearing about. But someone somewhere listening to this has just jumped up in joy.
Great. God for that person. I mean, we are all that person sometimes.
Yes. Anyway, eventually, Romaine turns 21. She takes all the money she has, and without telling her mother, leaves that French couple's house and runs away to Paris.
Love it.
As one does.
Mm-hmm. As one must do sometimes.
So she rents a dingy one-room in this apartment building. She goes about finding work as an artist model. She takes dangerous night rides on bikes in the parks. This is very scandalous at the time.
How come?
Skirts bouncing. You can see parts of their legs.
Oh.
The scandal.
Leggy midnight rides.
Yes.
Love it.
So it's during this time, Romaine also discovers a very freeing aspect of Paris.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Chinese pavilion in the Bois de Boulogne where you could get iced tea, that sort of thing. And she meets this woman there one day, and they hit off, and she very excitedly agrees to get in a carriage with her and go to her house, and that starts off the affair.
And who would this woman be?
I have no idea.
Oh, a mystery woman.
Some nameless woman. Romaine was not one to write down names of people or dates or things that happened. She was very secretive.
She was not a Natalie Barney with lists.
No. She ascribed much more to the idea at the time that sensuality flourished best in secret. So she didn't write about it.
So cool. I'm so glad for her. Just immediately off to Paris, and she finds a lady.
Yes.
May it happen for us all.
Though not without complication. There is the one incident where another woman apparently was jealous, and while they were dining, threw a carafe of water in Romaine's face, and her nose ended up bleeding, and the woman actually asked her after the assailant was gone why she didn't hit the woman back, and Romaine responded she had never hit anyone in her life.
Guess she's just not Paris enough yet.
However, not all is fabulous in Paris. Romaine doesn't have enough money. Romaine has to go to her mother. This is not good.
This is not good.
This is very not good.
So at this point, she's like in her 20s, right? Like, she is an adult. So her mom can't control her, right? Or can she?
This is still the Victorian era. This is the 1890s. Think of the attitudes towards women.
Right. No, so even though she's like a full adult, she's still kind of the ward of her parents until she marries, right?
Yeah. Also, you only became an adult at 21 at that time.
And how old is she here?
21, 22.
Wow, yeah.
So she does eventually end up getting more money, but we're not sure entirely what happened. There are three possibilities that have been thought of. One is more probable than the other two. So, there is a man in her mother's employ who eventually marries her sister Maya. They elope. However, there are three scenarios where he pops up, and the most likely scenario actually is that he takes advantage of her in her desperation and need for money, and she ends up pregnant. Between that time, Romaine does have the money, and she does start singing in a working man's cafe, but it's only a few months later that she abruptly leaves for the French countryside. It's thought that she figures out she's pregnant, she starts to show, she goes off to some place where she's not known, she gives birth, she gives the child to a convent or some religious place, and then she abruptly changes course again and leaves for Rome to study art.
Does she have money now?
She has only a little money.
She has enough to get her there, but, like, how is she gonna sustain that?
She's getting a monthly allowance from her mother.
Does her mother know about the pregnancy?
I do not think so. There's a lot we don't necessarily know about Romaine because it wasn't really talked about. It was maybe only hinted at a little bit. Some people, including a biographer, think it might be part of the reason for the animosity between Romaine and her sister Maya.
I can imagine.
So anyway, Romaine is in Rome, city of her birth, and she enrolls in 2 art schools, the more prestigious of which is the Scuola Nazionale. I probably butchered that Italian.
It's the one that sounds closest to that, though.
Yes. There's a minor problem. She's the only woman.
Oh, is she allowed?
Apparently, yes. But she's a woman and she's a foreigner. And as many people who are into drawing or have studied it formally will be aware, you do have to do life drawings.
Mm-hmm. And they're probably only guys? Or are there ladies too?
Men. In the nude. Only.
That's gonna make some awkward drawings then. Just sitting in a circle and you're the only lady. There's a naked guy in the middle. Now, bear in mind, I've been in this situation. There were also other ladies with me though. It's fine. It's not sexual. However, I can see how people then would get their panties in a twist.
I mean, they did more than get their panties in a twist because one of her mother's friends called on her at her apartment in Rome, and she proudly showed her some of her drawings, including some of the nudes, and that woman reported to her mother that her daughter was insane and depraved.
Also, in this family, she's fine.
Yes. But anyway, back to her being the only woman in this class full of men.
Was she okay?
One morning, it said, she walked into the life drawing class and someone had left a lewd postcard on her drawing stool. She ignored it. Just swept it off down onto the ground. Happened the next time as well. Now, she knew who the offender was, the man sitting next to her, bearded with glasses. However, the third time, a rather obscene book had been left open on her stool with certain passages highlighted.
Oh no.
And this guy decided to put himself in front of her and began whispering urgently, "Signora, Signora!" Romaine was justifiably pissed. Stood up, took the book, whacked him in the face with it, proceeded to say how indignant she was, and then stalked out of class.
Good. Good for her. Stand up to them.
Now, she did return and continue the class, but the attitude of all the men around her changed. It's said that if she so much as dropped an eraser, several men would leap to pick it up and help her.
Nice. As it should be, also. Good on her for being a pioneer. Starting us out. Someone has to do it. And I'm glad that it's someone who would stand up to the sexists.
However, that's not the end of it.
Oh no.
That same man proposed to her.
Take a hint, dude.
He did not take a hint.
So what did she do then?
Well, she obviously said no. He started to stalk her with his friends.
Oh my god, dude, take a hint.
He does not take a hint, so she basically goes on vacation to the island of Capri. Now, Capri is in the Bay of Naples, and it was known for being rather like Paris, but more southern.
Like Paris in what ways?
Paris in the no one cares who you're betting. Now, she still can't afford much, but she can afford to rent out this old decrepit church or part of it, set up an easel, and somehow get a dog named Marco.
So she has enough money.
She has enough. She paints Some people like her paintings, they buy her paintings. At this time, she is painting in color.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't her style.
Yeah, no, if you see, like if you Google image search her, like, a lot of what you see is, like, these desaturated kind of haunted figures.
I wouldn't call them all haunted, but
A
yes.
lot of them seem like, I don't know. I get an impression of, like, emotional disturbance from a lot of her work.
Oh, you should see her drawings then.
Well, anyway, so she's painting in color in a church with a dog.
Yes, and making a bit of money now off of her paintings. Anyway, she sees one day in the news her brother has died.
Oh, wow.
She goes back to her family to find her mother dying. Her mother was diabetic. Her mother dies. Romaine is fully an heiress now. However, she bears quite a bit of trauma. She actually ended up removing herself from the house to a hotel because she thought she was hearing her dead mother's voice.
Oh, no. Oh, that's bad. Also, if her family has a history of, like, schizophrenia and related mental illnesses, not great to be hearing voices. Probably pretty scary.
Yeah. Though I would hazard a guess she didn't really have any inherited mental illness. From what it sounds like, particularly at the end of her life, it sounds a bit more like PTSD.
That would be understandable.
After Romaine becomes an heiress, she goes back to the convent place where she left her kid, only to be told that she had died at a few months old.
The irony. Ah, poor woman.
She goes back to Capri, showering people in her newfound wealth, in a way, and decides she would like a companion in the form of a friend, like someone who can protect her from unwanted male attention and can also share her interests. She thinks John Ellingham Brooks is that man.
And who is John Ellingham Brooks?
A gay guy who thought he could be quite the intellectual, tried writing, didn't really do much with his life.
Up to this point, or in general?
In general.
Nice. Are they a good couple? Did they work together?
Oh, hell no.
Oh.
He wanted a much more conventional wife.
Then why did he pick her? Like, she's already living in a church and painting for a living.
I will give you 2 sentences that sum up their incompatibility. He wanted an elegant house in London and social position. She hated bourgeoisie traditions and hadn't wanted a traditional marriage ceremony, though Brooks had insisted.
God, yeah, they should not have done this thing. They should have maybe had a conversation about, where do you want to live? What do you want to do with your time? Is there anything about us that is compatible beyond we can be beards for each other?
In fact, she had planned on doing a walking tour of Europe, sketching, and just generally having a conversation with an agreeable companion. She even cut her hair short in anticipation for this and got hiking clothes and stuff. Following all of these revelations, she discovered she had made a tremendously terrible mistake. Eventually, he started talking about our money.
Oh no.
She fled to London.
Ironic, because he did want to live in London with her.
Eventually, they settle. She decides she's going to give him 300 francs a month, the same allowance that her mother gave her. She does this, says, "Go away, leave me alone." They come to this agreement for the rest of his life.
Wow.
Admittedly, he bitches about it for the rest of his life.
Oh. Can they not, like, divorce?
I don't know. I don't know if they thought of this or if it would be too much hassle.
Oh man, well, I guess it really does show a bit of your. Was she a lesbian or was she bi?
I would say she's a lesbian. There's no evidence of her ever sleeping with or having really feelings for a guy like that. It does get a bit confusing when you read how some people write about her because of her friendship with D'Annunzio.
Do we want to talk about that yet, or are there other points to cover?
I do want to talk about it. It is a major part of her life. But first, I think we should say that while she's in London, her style changes.
Mm-hmm.
She goes from painting in vibrant colors to black, white, gray.
Why?
Not entirely sure. There is an artist called Whistler who is pointed at as a major influence on her. He had died like several years before, but she was familiar with his work. She actually ended up living in an area where he had lived before in London. So we could say that because he also used a lot of the same colors. There's certain paintings that are similar between the two. But anyway, yes, after a time, she does go back to Europe. Before she meets D'Annunzio, though, she hooks up with the sewing machine heiress.
And who might this be?
Wynaretta Singer.
Mm-hmm.
So Wynaretta Singer, I believe we had mentioned her previously on this podcast. She married a French aristocrat on the understanding that she would fund his amateur music, and he would never set foot in her bedroom.
Love it.
So they have an affair, and this is one of the few times Romaine tries to be in society.
Mm-hmm.
She really goes to parties, to salons, interacts with people in general, is very much a woman of society.
Does that work? Is it fun? Does she like it?
She does not.
Oh.
She does not really like it, but she likes Wynaretta. Wynaretta does try to get her another marriage at one point. She tries to convince her of this. It does not work. Romaine is like, no, been there, done that, never again. But no, this also produces some of her social awkwardness.
How so?
Well, as you can imagine, for someone who grew up in a mentally unstable household, constantly moving, was abandoned at points in slums, and ping-ponged between boarding schools at her mother's whim, she's not the best at social interaction.
So it's not that it produces her social awkwardness, it's that it reveals this to the world, and maybe to her.
Well, I refer to it as social awkwardness because that's what it seems like to me, because it's basically shoving your feet in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you realize it, but you just run away.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine. Do we have any examples of times when she put her foot in it?
Well, this is the real example, because it also is slightly controversial. It's during the Dreyfus affair. Now, the thing is, in France at this time, salons are taking sides. You are pro-Dreyfus or anti-Dreyfus. She's going to a pro-Dreyfus salon, and this man who's quite rich takes a liking to her. She just tries pushing him away. At one point, he asks her for interior design tips, and she goes and looks at his apartment and is like the most gaudy thing ever. So she, thinking no one would ever follow this advice, was like, throw it all away and start from scratch. He followed her advice. He really liked her.
He needs to chill.
Bad news. The woman who ran the salon noticed this and was like, he is rich and available. She is beautiful and available. This is perfect.
No. I think she is not the only socially inept person in this scenario.
No, but she is the one who shoves both feet in her mouth. Because when that woman suggested to her, Romaine, completely taken by surprise, said, I don't want to marry that filthy, and then ended that statement with the word Jew.
Oh no! Oh, Romaine, don't be anti-Semitic about it. End the sentence with the word man.
Well, Romaine was embarrassed. She never did actually apologize, but that was a Romaine thing to do. Instead, she just never came to that salon ever again.
Wow. Now, was she anti-Semitic at all, or was she like Natalie Barney anti-Semitic, like when it's convenient?
I think she was more of just an average person of not really paying attention all that much to what you say.
So she was in a culture that was kind of default anti-Semitic a bit, and when she was having a heated gaming moment, she would kind of break into that.
Yes, because several of her lovers are Jewish or part Jewish.
So it's not that she's actually like thinks that Jews are a subpar race or something. She's just in this culture and not doing a whole lot to question or push back against it.
Yeah. As we said previously, both Natalie and Barney and Romaine Brooks are not the most politically aware or active of people.
Yeah. One of those kind of mixed bag parts of their lives and legacies.
But anyway, Romaine essentially flees from society, but she meets D'Annunzio.
Who is D'Annunzio?
Gabriel D'Annunzio is known as a writer. He's Italian. He looks like a gnome.
I'm sorry, what?
He looks like a gnome.
Hold up. Got a Google image. Oh my god. He looks like a gnome. Oh, I love his mustache. So curly. He's so cute and fun.
Funny you should say that. He's known for being a womanizer.
How?
Exactly.
He's so bald and cute and little and tiny. I don't actually know how tall he is, but he looks like a Christmas ornament or something. He doesn't look like a real man. Everyone who is listening to this needs to go search him. How did this man become a womanizer?
By ignoring what all other men think and essentially treating women like human beings.
Oh, well, see, there it is, really. You listen to a woman and, like, that's half the battle.
Yes, and that's what he did. It was how he ended up bedding several desirable, famous women, including the actress Eleanor Duse, who was Sarah Bernhardt's rival. But anyway, D'Annunzio, writer, Italian, looks like a gnome, somehow a womanizer.
Wild. So Romaine and him might have had a thing.
They were friends.
Mm-hmm.
However, to hear or read what some people think of it, you would, let's just say, it reminds me of reading posts on r/are-the-straights-okay, where it's someone believes a man and a woman can never be friends.
So it's more that type of person who's saying that they had a thing. They were most likely just friends.
It does read like that because D'Annunzio didn't really treat her the way he would treat his conquests. Like, he had a rose gallery of, like, these are all the women I have slept with.
And Romaine was not among them.
Yes. He also gave her a unique nickname. He recycled nicknames for women he slept with.
No.
Yes. However, there was only ever one little ashen one. I'm going to butcher this Italian, I know. Caesarina? We'll go with that for now. I will probably just be using the English translation. Also, Romaine never mentions having slept with him. In fact, she always says the opposite. And the thing is, we do know of people who Romaine slept with.
Even though she's not making lists like Natalie Barney, like, we have a pretty good idea.
Yes, which brings us to the dancer Ida Rubinstein.
Rubinstein, is she Jewish?
Yes. Russian. Already married, ran away from Russia and her husband. Bisexual. Quite outlandish. She should have her own episode now that I think about it.
I guess we'll put her on the list then.
Yes. However, it's this weird, awkward, almost triangle, because D'Annunzio wants Ida, who wants Romaine, and Romaine is like, D'Annunzio has broken my friendship and my trust.
Oh.
So I'm going to steal his girl.
Oh no. Also, what did D'Annunzio do?
There was a point, he was running away from one lover, this noble woman, is something. I don't really remember. I just remember that apparently she stood outside Romaine's house waving a gun around saying that she would shoot D'Annunzio or someone. But anyway, D'Annunzio had taken Romaine up on an offer of staying at her rented place in southern France, and she would paint his portrait. She did do that. His lover tracked him down. Romaine left the place going, not dealing with this. Just not dealing with the drama.
So this was his betrayal of her?
It's a bit more complicated than that, as it is with these people.
Mm-hmm.
So the woman was named Natalie de Golobeff. She was the one who showed up. And the thing was, that was sort of the camel that broke the straw's back, because at one point they also quarreled over her finding a pair of women's riding gloves amidst her belongings that were not hers, and he declared that she was jealous, and she was like, what the fuck? Basically, she was like, he always wanted to think the worst of her. He also sensed the vulnerability under her exterior mask, as one of her biographers says, and he sort of exploited it. So yeah, their friendship was never the same.
No.
And so she stole Ida.
Great. Was her relationship with Ida fulfilling? Was it, like, good for them, or was it just kind of like a spite thing?
So it was fulfilling on its own in the way I suppose most of Romaine's affairs were. She was no Natalie. We'll say that. However, Ida was mad about Romaine. She wanted them to sequester in the countryside in a house for the rest of their lives, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Romaine did not want that.
What did Romaine want?
Romaine traveled a great deal. She couldn't stay in one place, and she didn't like being around people. But anyway, doesn't matter. World War I has broken out. It's 1914.
Yeah, I guess nothing else matters, so what does she do?
So, Romaine actually, for not being patriotic or anything like that, she briefly becomes an ambulance driver.
Why does she do this?
She does want to help the war effort. However, she stops in the winter because open car, bad back, she's in her late 30s. This is not a good combination.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, she helps with Artist Relief Fund. She does a portrait of Ida Rubinstein as a Red Cross nurse with the city of Ypres burning in the background, and that painting goes on Red Cross pamphlets.
So she's not physically doing things as, like, ambulance driving, but she's doing a lot for the culture, for the soul of the country.
Yeah, she gets awarded a medal by the French government for this. But anyway, that's not the big thing of World War I. Now, Romaine has now garnered the nickname Thief of Souls by Count Robert de Montesquiou, dandy in the Parisian culture of this time. She gets nicknamed this, actually, because it said that when she painted you, she looked right into your soul.
Ooh.
She stripped away the mask.
Mm-hmm.
Because Romaine, you see, she didn't paint you necessarily as you wanted to be painted. She painted what she saw. So it was a sort of ego trip to be painted by Romaine, but you knew you weren't necessarily going to like the portrait you got.
Ooh. It's like one of those BuzzFeed quizzes, but, like, if it knew you.
Romaine is still going to some salons. It's 1916. She goes to Lady Anglesey's salon, and she meets an intriguing woman she's heard about there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Romaine was aware of Natalie's existence, since she had actually dated Renee Vivian at one point after Renee and Natalie had broken up.
Oh.
And she'd gotten an earful about Natalie then.
And it had made her stay away.
Altogether, everything she heard had intrigued her, because she had also heard society ladies gossiping that Natalie would be accepted by when she returned to her mother's friends to society. And Romaine looked around at these puffed up members of society and was like, pretty sure this Natalie person has found much better and intriguing friends elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they see each other at Lady Anglesey's. They talk. They go home in the same carriage.
Mm-hmm.
The marriage starts. It continues. It's 1918. Louis de Grandmont is not pleased. As we've said before, in our Natalie Barney episode, lesbian Wagnerian opera ensues. Lily gives an ultimatum about Romaine to Natalie. Natalie is like, I'm not giving up either of you. Drafts a marriage contract. Tradition through modernization. Makes Lily a bigamist, even though the French government, no government at the time, in fact, is going to recognize this.
But still, they have established there is now an official relationship happening.
A strange love triangle three-way marriage.
If it works.
Somehow it did.
So what is this married life like for them?
Well, none of them really live together. Romaine spends part of each year in Italy, in Capri. She has, at one point, a flat in Nice. Lily also is not always in Paris. Natalie, not as much up for travel, stays at 20 Rue Jacob. So, Romaine on Capri. Natalie gets jealous. She writes such letters as, I know you haven't bathed without everyone on the island desiring you.
Ooh.
She gets jealous when Romaine starts an affair with Renato Borgatti, the pianist, who also, fun fact, had an affair with Compton Mackenzie's wife, Faith Mackenzie.
Who's this?
Compton Mackenzie writes Extraordinary Women, which lampoons the lesbians on Capri.
Oh, sir. Oh, that was an epic own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also a point where Lily de Gramont visits Romaine on Capri, and Natalie apparently is wondering, like, are my closest lovers now lovers? She doesn't... Okay, maybe she would have figured it out, but we do not know.
Still, even to this day?
Yeah, we don't know.
Oh, I love it, a good lesbian mystery.
Yes. Did R plus L equal anything but a question mark? It's a very interesting form of math.
Sounds like one of those, like, YouTube conspiracy theories.
But anyway, Romaine does actually have a bedroom at Rue Jacob for when she's in Paris. This is part of the reason she's not pleased when Dolly Wilde becomes Natalie's girlfriend or mistress.
Because Dolly Wilde takes that bedroom?
Pretty much. Imagine, if you will, you're coming back from a long trip. You want the bed you slept in before. You get there and you find that your bedroom has been given over to your wife's mistress. Would you not be pissed?
Yeah, I'd be a bit pissed. Be a fair bit pissed. I mean, to be fair, I would be the wife who's at home and not traveling because I like my bed so much. But
this incident is one of the things that has this back and forth between Natalie and Romaine about Dolly Wilde being involved with Natalie, because previous biographers have misinterpreted this.
How so?
So it had been previously interpreted as the behavior of a jealous, insecure rival. When really, if your bedroom has been given to your wife's mistress, you're not going to be pleased. Now, also at one point in the 1930s, Natalie and Romaine build the hyphenated villa. It's 2 wings with a shared dining room. Now, Romaine didn't like crowds. Natalie loved to entertain. She had her weekly salon. Romaine did occasionally show up. She was not the most social of people. She enjoyed hanging out with the housekeeper and jabbering in French. So, with their villa, Romaine could work and not be disturbed by the stream of people visiting Natalie.
So they have a place together, but that suits each of their needs.
Together but separate, yes. Mm-hmm. And she's also painting a great many of these women. She paints Una Lady Trowbridge, the lover of Radcliffe Hall. She does paint Lily de Gramont, and she paints Natalie herself.
Must be pretty interesting over there. She's stealing all these people's souls.
Yes.
Are there ever any, like, fights that break out and people are like, oh, I do not like how you painted me, or does everyone kind of accept, like, well, I signed up for this?
They basically accept it at this point. Una was not thrilled at how she looked. She actually would whisper to people, I don't actually look like that, do I?
Oh no. Oh, that's the worst.
So yeah, it's not the most idyllic of existences, but it's good.
And then?
World War II. World War II can make everything go wrong. And as we discussed in Natalie's episode, both Romaine and Natalie end up in Romaine's villa outside of Florence for all of World War II.
Yeah. How is that? Are they like kind of cabin fever? It sounds like Romaine likes to move places.
And they've never truly lived together, except for short bits of time. They're stuck together for several years.
So what happened?
They get on each other's nerves.
Do we know what their arguments were about?
Natalie's writing to her housekeeper, "Oh, send Dolly luxuries." Dolly's off in London, her housekeeper is in Paris, and Romaine is like, "What luxuries?"
Oh. I mean, they're both still heiresses.
That doesn't mean much when you're out of coffee in all of Italy.
Wow. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess the war puts a strain on everyone.
Yeah, and there's times where her servants are stealing from her, because the villa has its own farm, thankfully. But her servants are stealing food from her. One dude gets a pitchfork and tries to overthrow her.
Dang.
He gets arrested. They're fine. The war ends. Natalie, as we know, goes back off to Paris. Romaine stays for a time in Italy. She doesn't really paint after World War II.
Do we know why?
Not really. We do know she continued drawing all her life. She did say that, though a lot of her drawings, like, we don't have them. You would think there would be thousands of drawings, but we don't have thousands of drawings. We don't know what happened to them.
Interesting. Mysterious.
But anyway, she now has her memoirs and her World War II journal. Her memoirs, she tries to publish. She goes a bit overboard with keeping, like, names out of it. She does a lot of initials for people she probably really doesn't need to do that for. She has problems getting it published.
Because it's not... They're used to, at this point, either everything being explicit or everything being very thinly veiled under fake names. Is that the reason?
No, it's they don't believe her childhood.
Really?
Yes.
Really? That's messed up of them. Also, since when has a publisher cared if what you wrote was the truth?
I don't know. She shows it to several people in their circle. They don't believe her. Anyway, eventually Lily dies. 1954. Romaine, by the way, never publishes her memoirs. They're currently deposited with the Smithsonian Institute, still unpublished to this day.
Damn.
Same as her World War II journal.
She's, like, famous.
Debatable famous.
She has a Wikipedia article, right?
Quite a long one, but yes.
Okay, that's famous enough for her book to get published. I mean, there's plenty of YouTubers for whom that's the case.
Well, Romaine isn't setting her pool on fire for the internet, so no book for her then.
Okay, whatever. Guess that's just how it is.
But anyway, yeah. Lily dies, 1954. The stable triangle is gone.
So, it's just Romaine and Natalie. How does this go?
Not the best. And now they do make plans for how things will go. There is a time where the main game plan is once they're both dead, they'll be in the same plot in a Paris cemetery. That doesn't happen. Natalie ends up with the backup plan of she's buried with her sister. So they do plan for other things that work out. Romaine's works are deposited in museums, including the Smithsonian. However, Romaine's going downhill, as old people tend to do.
Health-wise, mentally, what's going on?
So she complains of digestional problems. Her eyesight isn't as good. She's having much worse nightmares. There are points where she hates this, she ends up in the arms of one of her servants at night because she can't quite tell where she is, and it's like her memories of World War I and World War II have merged together.
Ooh, wow.
So Romaine is steadily declining. The thing with her decline is one of the things she really feared was sort of coming up. So as you said earlier, and as we mentioned at the beginning, her family doesn't have the best mental health. Romaine starts losing track of time, hearing voices, her mother, her brother. And the reason I tend to think it's not so much inherited mental illness is A, it shows up at the end of her life, B, having had a relative with PTSD in the last year or several months or so of his life, he really started also losing track of time. He thought he was back in Vietnam, that sort of thing. Like, very much more traumatic stuff easily coming up to the surface that didn't at all seem to be a problem before. But I am not a psychologist, just my opinion. But anyway, this leads to Romaine shutting the door in Natalie's face, basically. About 2 years before Romaine died, she stops talking to Natalie.
Why?
She cuts off the love of her life.
What could cause her to do this?
Romaine's problems. Romaine didn't want Natalie to see her in such decline. She wanted to be the androgynous angel she had been for decades to Natalie.
Oh, she's like a cat who goes into the woods to die. Poor Romaine. I want to hug her.
Anyway, yeah. It doesn't help that the triangle with Lily dissolved at Lily's death, and Natalie's new lover/nurse, Janine, Romaine did not like her. It's like, you can't replace Lily with this woman. Mm-hmm. We cannot recreate it with this woman.
That makes sense. It seemed like Janine was a different sort of person to Natalie's previous paramours.
So, Romaine doesn't answer Natalie's letters. Also, in part, it is thought because her eyesight's going, she can't read. She has to have someone read to her, and it's like, have someone read you a love letter from Natalie Barney.
Maybe not.
Yes, and Romaine being the very private person she was, it's like, probably her thinking was, I am not having anyone read letters from any lover of mine ever. So she just sort of waits for 2 years to die.
Pretty awful.
Natalie only holds on for 2 years after that, and as we have said before, Natalie isn't informed until months later that Romaine has died.
So sad. I mean, they had each other for so long, and then at the end, they just lost each other.
I don't think Romaine would have seen it as losing each other. I think it would have been I cut you off now so I never have to lose you.
That's fair, and you never have to lose me. You always have that image of me when I was still at my prime, and you don't have to see me declining. Oh, it's still really sad, though, that she didn't have anyone in her last years to support her, to take care of her.
I mean, she had her servants, but...
Yeah, but that's different. I mean, she didn't trust them to read love letters for her. Like, they weren't close people, it doesn't sound like.
No, they were just the hired help.
Poor Romaine.
She is buried near her brother and niece. Though her brother did on occasionally protect her from their mother, he also didn't help in the long run. Like, causes of trauma, running from trauma your whole life, and then you're buried near it.
Yeah, that is really sad. Why didn't she end up being buried with Natalie? Why did that plan fall through?
I think, in part, with the whole cutting off Natalie, I don't think the plans were ever fully finalized.
But at least she's remembered not for her troubled past, but for, the world that she made for herself, the kind of sapphic society that she ran, and the art that she made, and the places that she went.
She appears as a character in Extraordinary Women by Compton Mackenzie, which is actually making fun of all the sapphic women on Capri, but...
Why would you do such a thing?
Because his wife joined in.
Oh my god, well.
But that's another episode.
Mm-hmm.
She does appear in Juna Barnes' Ladies' Almanac. She's also, of course, known for her paintings. They're still exhibited.
Where? Are there places that, well, now people can't go anywhere, but in the hypothetical future when people can travel.
So I'm not entirely sure about the European museums. I do know the Smithsonian has quite a large collection. I've seen it before. I know it also travels around the country. So you can catch an exhibition of her work in the U.S. You can stare at the paintings and see them staring back at you.
You can see all those souls that she stole.
Speaking of her work, on a last note, her latest biographer mentions synesthesia when describing her work.
Did she have synesthesia?
She never outright says that Romaine did. So I'm intrigued and confused.
Mm-hmm.
I would find it interesting if she did, because her biographer describes her work as like a musical composition. As someone who has synesthesia, I would be curious to see what colors she heard in music, if she actually had it. Heard, saw.
I do wonder also because her paintings were very monochromatic. That would be interesting.
Well, she wouldn't have painted listening to music. CD players were not a thing.
Right, but she could sing, or she could, picture the music in her mind.
I don't think Romaine sang while painting. From what I understand, sitting for her was a very intimidating task.
She's just kind of looking at you and painting. Is that what you're saying?
I think there must have been some small talk because she got fed up painting Luisa Casati.
There was some interaction, but maybe she's not giving a full-on aria while she's doing this.
But remember, when your wife's mistress takes over your bedroom, send a very pointed letter about sweeping the house.